Well, as we opened the book of Amos a few days ago, we saw how it's set in a time of great corruption and injustice in Israel. The rich exploited the poor, the strong preyed upon the weak, and we noted how the very same thing happens in our day. And so the question that we rightly asked in day one was this: does God care? Well, we don't need to read any further than the second verse of the book of Amos to discover the answer to that question. Does God care about all the evil and injustice in our world? You bet he does. In fact, look how he responds, verse 2. And he, that is Amos, said, "The Lord roars from Zion and utters his voice from Jerusalem. The pastures of the shepherds mourn and the top of Carmel withers." How does God respond to the sins and corruption of the world? Is he wildly indifferent? Is he like the timid grandfather in the sky who kind of rolls his eyes and shakes his head in passive disapproval? No, Amos says God roars. So the Bible often uses the imagery of animals to depict God's actions in certain moments. At times he's said in scripture to be like a lamb who is tender, or an eagle who sees everything, or a leopard who devours. And in this instance in the book of Amos, he's depicted as a lion who roars. And notice that God is said to be a lion who roars from Zion. Zion is a mountain which is located in Jerusalem. We're also told that his voice is uttered from Jerusalem. Now this is shocking because firstly, this was meant to be a holy place. Jerusalem is where God's holy people were supposed to live holy lives in reverent worship to God, a holy God. But it shows you how far God's people have fallen. They are, in part, the object of his wrath. They too are just like the rest of the world, engaging in injustice and evil to the point where Carmel withers. Now Carmel is also located in the north, and at this time it was a luxurious place. You see, Carmel had benefited from all the prosperity brought about from injustice in Israel. But at the roar of the Lord, Amos says, even Carmel withers. Carmel might seem powerful and luxurious and splendid, but it is nothing compared to the glorious wrath of God. And so how does God feel about injustice? How does God feel about corruption? He's anything but indifferent, particularly when the guilty are among those who are said to be God's own people. You see, God's people had experienced God's goodness and kindness, but they used that very goodness and kindness as a means of exploiting others and sinning against the very God who had been so good and so kind to them. What about you? I wonder, are you ever tempted to do this exact same thing and to show contempt for God's goodness and kindness towards you? You see, God's kindness in no way whatsoever should be used as a means or a license or excuse just to exploit others or to sin against this God. No, the Lord hates injustice and he roars like a ferocious lion against it. Today's reflection question is this: how does the fact that God roars against injustice both encourage you as you look into our world, that God is against injustice and hates it and roars against it, but also how does it also challenge you as you look into your own heart and actually discover the evil and injustice and corruption that you too are guilty of?